Alrighty, we were pleased to have on the podcast today from Montreal, a longtime NHL referee that is now retired. He refed in the NHL for, I believe, more than 1,600 games, which is incredible and awesome. After all that, we're happy to have join us today, Dave Jackson.
How you doing, guys? Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Glad you could join the show.
Absolutely, and we have a ton of questions for you. We're going to start out from a young Dave Jackson, get right into some hockey questions, of course. But Dave, first off with you, what's new? What's going on? What's happening in your life and your world?
Just grinding it out. Live in Denver now. Moved here 8 years ago. Weather's great, except we get a snowstorm coming in, which bums me out because it was almost golf weather. They don't close the courses here. It's just started refereeing when I was a kid, 14 years old. I was a player, wanted to make it as a player. Decent hockey player, but nowhere near good enough to play pro. Never got drafted, and I was refereeing the entire time. Went to college, and I caught the eye of Brian Lewis when I was 21. Invited me to training camp and made me an NHL trainee, and I stayed there 32 years.
How often do you ever see our good friend John Michael Lyles at all down there?
I see him all the time. They made me and Brad Watson, who's actually, I believe, from Regina.
Yeah.
They accepted us and made us kind of honorary members of the Avalanche alumni.
Nice.
So we occasionally go and skate with them and hang out, do some charity golf events and things. And John Michael's a great dude.
Oh, and he's just shredded too, just a man rocket. That guy, there's not an ounce of fat on that guy's body. He probably didn't play today.
And he still he does the broadcasts for the Avs, and he does them from his wine cellar. Just all these bottles of wine and bourbon behind him. I don't know how he keeps the weight off, honestly.
Well, that's a question I want to know, because he's on the broadcast, but he's crushing wine all the time. Is that that's their thing? JML is good red wine and just drinking live on the air. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good gig. I'm not sure that would fly with my bosses, but it's probably best when you're analyzing rules to just be sticking to the Diet Coke until you're done.
Absolutely.
John, go ahead, Tori. Go ahead.
John Michael makes me laugh every time. Back in the NHL, 2004, the Jim Houston did the voicing, and it was always John Michael. Anyways, sorry, that just made me chuckle.
Yeah, I'm never sure what to call him. If I should call him John Michael or Johnny or, so.
Sometimes I fully text John Michael Lyles, or I'll just be like, "What's up, JML?" Because it's too many letters for me. Sometimes.
For sure.
I'm just
So you kind of. I was going to ask you when you started reffing, but you'd mentioned at the age of 14. So you start reffing at 14. Where did you start? How did it progress? And when did you realize, hey, I'm pretty good at this and I can make a career out of this?
It's probably when I stopped playing hockey. I was 18 and was going to college, and I was offered a shot to go I was just refereeing in my local town. It was just for pocket money and to be on the ice. And then I was offered to referee. It was called the Lac St. Louis region, and it encompassed probably 30 cities, 50 square miles. And it was, AAA hockey and stuff. And I started doing that. And there was a guy, Doug Hayward, who mentored quite a few Quebecers, took me under his wing a little bit and said, you could be good, and moved me up pretty quick. I was doing working the lines, doing junior B, junior AA hockey, refereeing midget AAA. And that's when I thought, well, maybe, who knows? I mean, my goal is just to get to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And the next year I was there. I was there as a linesman the next year. And I went, this is pretty cool. People in the building. That was back in the days when, Claude Lemieux, Pat LaFontaine, Patrick Roy was in nets, Pierre Turgeon. Wow. And it was pretty good hockey. And it was a rush being there. And that's when I kind of thought, man, I'm going to bear down and dedicate myself and see what happens. That's probably 17, 18 at the time.
Awesome.
So that's a good point Trey just brought up. And I have a lot of buddies that ref, and I coach junior hockey, and I see them all reffing, and a lot of them do it, for pocket change, this and that. And then now they have this, I believe it's a grooming system, get them to the next level and do some junior A, some Western League. I guess maybe you kind of answered this already, but when you were reffing, the junior Bs, the triple A's, when you were reffing, was there a point where you're like, I'm going to try and go as far as I can and, just keep doing as many games as I can and just trying to get to that next level?
Yeah. I think when I was accepted into the Quebec has this program where it's called the elite staff. It's in French. It's It's elite. It's elite staff. And once you're on that staff, that's when you have to be on that staff in order to do midget AAA, major junior, or the Canadian college hockey.
Yeah.
So it's not as if, you go to one town and this guy's working because the referee in chief in that town thought he deserved a break. You have to be part of this provincial staff. And you actually have a training camp, you do fitness tests, do all that. Once I got to that level, that's when I said, yeah, I think I can do this. It's just a matter of getting a break. And I was probably 18, 19 when I was on that staff.
I want to jump in and ask a question. It's not on any of our notes, but something that, my friend, his dad was Mick Magoo. So Mick, obviously, or the late Mick.
Yes. God bless his soul. What a great dude.
Yeah. And I grew up around Mick, hanging out with Jared, and, Mick's physique as a referee wasn't the best physique. For yourself, like, what kind of conditioning do you guys have to do? I mean, you're up and down that ice 60 minutes a game, right?
At the best level.
Well, like we always referred to Mick as just being sort of barrel chested. It sort of encompassed everything. Great storyteller, great dude. I miss him. Our training camps are not that dissimilar to NHL players training camp. We don't do the kind of strength testing they do with the bench press and everything, but we're expected to come in with low body fat. I mean, we've got guys with single digit body fat. They weigh you, they put you on a bike, you do the Wingate test, you do we used to do the Cooper test. They put the mask on you. I forget the name of it. The
VO2?
VO2 max.
Yeah.
Do that. Then they put you into sit-ups, push-ups, holding the plank. You do shuttle runs. You do 2 shuttle runs. You do a short agility one. Then you do the one till you just die. It goes on. The beep test, I guess they call it. Standing long jump, percentage of body fat with the calipers. I mean, it's pretty intense. You work out. It used to be when I started back in '86. A lot of guys came to training camp to get in shape. And I'd start running a mile maybe 2 weeks before I went to camp. And for probably since about 2000, you would finish the season, take a week off, maybe a month off if you didn't go far in the playoffs. But by June 1st, you're back in the gym six days a week.
So that's probably one part of the job you don't miss now, right? Is doing the fitness testing, right?
I don't miss it, but as I get slow and fatter, I almost wish I had something to. Yeah, I mean, you'd go to the gym, and what would motivate you to go to the gym was fear of being embarrassed at camp, fear of them calling you out and saying, go home until you lose the weight. I mean, right. You had a reason to get up every day and go to the gym, and now it's not quite as you sort of set a bar for yourself, and when you step on the scale and you cross that bar, then you work out real hard to get back below that bar, and then you go, okay, well, I'm good now. But yeah, there's not quite the same urgency.
Or if you're Garrett Rank, you just play in the USAM and US Mid-Am every summer.
Yeah, that's true.
I played with Garrett last summer out here in Denver, and I was having a banner.
He's not bad.
No, I was having a banner day. I was striping the ball down the middle of the fairway, and he'd come up and he would literally launch it 35, 40 yards past me. And it's just going like consistently every hole. I'm just going, man, like I got that on the screws, and you still put it 45 yards over mine.
That's just one incredible guy I want to golf with. I heard he's just nuts.
He came out with us.
Dirty.
He came out with us, and we played the white tees, and he had a couple of beers with us, and I think he shot 66, not even trying.
Wow.
Like,
he's so wild.
Yeah.
But you talked about like growing up reffing in Quebec. Did you grow up in Montreal or a different part of Quebec?
Yeah, no, born and raised in Montreal, and moved to the suburbs, the western suburbs, when I was 3, and lived there my entire childhood and most of my adulthood.
Gotcha. What other kind of like activities did you do in hobbies?
Golf and baseball.
Okay.
No one played soccer.
Baseball?
Well, I wasn't very good, but I crushed it as an adult playing slow pitch. But playing baseball, just an infielder, not much of a power hitter. Couldn't hit the curve.
Big Tim Raines fan.
Oh, totally. The Expos were one of the greatest teams ever. If we'd had a wild card during the height of the Expos, they'd have been in the playoffs every year.
Well, they would have won the World
Series. If the strike in '94 didn't happen,
they would have won the World Series that year.
Yeah, look back at '82. I mean, Rick Monday killed us on Blue Monday, and they brought in Steve Rogers as a relief pitcher in the ninth inning and gave up that home run. But I mean, we had an amazing team back then. That was the Tim Raines era.
Yeah,
It's
Andre
phenomenal.
Dawson was back then. Who else? I think I mean, I was only like in
we had
1982.
Gary-
I was only 2 years old, so I don't remember that one. But
That wasn't even
we had-
thought of.
yeah, you
We
were
had Gary,
15 years.
Gary Carter, Tim Raines. We even had Pete Rose in, I think, '81. He played one season with us. It was a great team, great
hopefully
franchise.
They get a team back. The Expos.
You know what? If they do, I'll be at the home opener. They need a downtown stadium.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Dave, I want to ask a question. You brought up like what did you just talk about? You just mentioned
Baseball.
no, way before that. Your last question. Doesn't matter. Dave, I do a lot of pre-scouting for coaching, obviously, and on other players and teams and breakouts and all that stuff, right? As a ref, I tell my guys that take a lot of penalties sometimes on my team or whatever it is, that these refs do pre-scouting and they do their homework and they know who's on the ice, they know who's playing. What are you guys doing, I guess, before a game, whether it's in the locker room and do you guys have video or are you watching like, okay, you know, this guy takes a lot of 10s or a lot of whatever, whether it's junior hockey or the NHL. I mean, do you guys do a lot of pre-scouting?
You don't do a lot of prejudging. You never want to prejudge a game. In fact, they brought me on ESPN about 2 weeks ago when Tom Wilson made his return to Madison Square Garden. And, you know, the Rangers now have Reeves and they stockpiled them and I think they actually said this is so we don't get pushed around by Tom Wilson anymore when they got him in the trade. And they were asking me, did the referees prejudge the game? And I said, definitely not. The last thing you want to do is say, well, I'm going to prejudge this game and I'm going to go and call a bunch of real tight penalties.
Yeah.
And, you know, possibly. And what happened was they didn't prejudge the game. The teams played hockey and it was a great hockey game. The last thing you want to do is insert yourself into a game that doesn't need to be inserted into, call a couple of cheap penalties, teams get scored on. Now they're down a couple of goals and they're looking at you going, you know, we were just going to play hockey, but now you've got us so frustrated. Now we're just going to, you know, start taking dumb penalties. Yeah. So the same goes for individual players. You don't want to prejudge a player. I think it's incumbent upon the senior official on any game to, you know, you're there so early, you're there an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours before the game. You pull the lineup sheet out, it's sitting right there. They provide you with everything you need. And you look at it, you go down the list of players, linesmen talk about centermen, which guys have certain tendencies to jump, just to be aware of it. Deal with it early, deal with the centerman, talk to him, go, listen, don't be jumping on me, work with me, I'll work with you. And you do the same with the players as referees. You say, well, this guy, you know, I had him last game and he was doing this, but I talked to him. So just be aware of that. And you kind of have your antenna up. But the last thing you want to do is go out and, you know, threaten a player or say, don't do this tonight. I mean, because you've got to start with a clean slate every game.
So I know we got a lot of notes here, Drew.
I was going to ask one more question, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to jump in on this one. We're kind of going off script, but I mean, Dave,
we don't have a script. We shoot from the hip.
Good. Yeah.
Hey, on ESPN, I don't get a script, so I just got to jump in. So you guys go ahead.
So you started in the mid 80s, you said, right?
1980. My first pro game was 1986. My first NHL game was 1990.
Okay. So from 1990, what was the transition like? Because I remember watching the old hockey, like the hooks, the trips, the slashes where refs didn't see nothing. It just, the game kept going.
You had one ref.
Well, no, I know, but to today's age where they call everything or damn near everything. What was that transition like as a ref to go, okay, I used to watch this for so many years, the clutching and the grabbing, you know, I'm in the corner, I'm stepping on the puck, they're going to blow the whistle, to nowadays where you could step on that puck for 3.5 minutes and the ref ain't blowing it.
I hear you. Well, you know, it's funny. I used to say that watching guys, especially when I was in the minors, I was part of the program, but I was, you know, looking up to guys that were full-time NHL guys, you know, Don Koharski, Bill McCreary, like those guys. And I'm looking and you would see something that goes unpenalized and the announcers, their first reaction would be, well, there's some good judgment here. He's letting them play hockey. And even myself, you know, you could miss something and you get credited with good judgment, you're letting them play hockey back in the 80s and 90s, to now they expect that call to be made. There is no, well, you know, letting them play hockey, a trip on a breakaway or a hook. Back then, you only sort of called a hook if the guy went down.
Right.
Like I think back to Mario Lemieux, who is one of the all-time greatest goal scorers ever. He was so big and so powerful. And I think if he'd played in today's rules, he might have 200 goals.
Because guys would be clutching and grabbing and hanging on to him.
Oh man, he would drive the net with 2 guys on his back,
Yeah.
and he wouldn't go down. He'd still score a goal. He reminded me, I mean, you guys are too young, but there was an episode of the Flintstones where Fred Flintstone went back to college and playing football, and he'd run into the end zone with 4 guys on top of him. And that's what Mary Lee Mill would do. He just had guys over him all the time. Mark Messier, I mean, those guys would just fight through traffic, and they never went down, but their arms were being hooked. They had one hand off their stick half the time. And that just wasn't the standard back then. I think the standard really changed in 2005 after the 1-year lockout.
Yeah.
Brendan Shanahan spearheaded a group of players. They formed like a competition committee. And Stephen Walkham, my coworker, and then he became the boss, was tasked with implementing these rules. And he did a fantastic job. Exhibition season that year out of training camp, I remember one game, I think I had 26 minor penalties. And
Wow.
the announcers were going, this is ridiculous. It's never going to work. The players were yelling at us, come on, let us just play hockey. This isn't going to work. And to his credit, he kept sending out videos. He kept sending out memorandums almost daily going. And what he would do is he would clip newspaper articles from Toronto Star, from TSN, from guys like Pierre Maguire going, this will work. This is great. Skilled players are going to get to play. And you know what? We outlasted the players. The coaches realized this isn't going away, and we have to adjust. And it cost so many players their jobs. Those slow-footed big defensemen that relied on hooking and holding, they were no longer in the league. And you just saw younger and younger and quicker players come in. And it's not perfect today. People are always going to critique refereeing, but the players know there's a standard. And you go to the net and get hooked, it's going to get called.
See, and I was just going to piggyback that question because you mentioned it. I'm a huge Oilers fan. So I watch Connor McDavid every night. That guy should get.
So are you one of the guys that fills my Twitter inbox with complaints?
That's a no. Trust me.
Now he's going
Not
to.
a friend of the show. I wouldn't do that too. But
Okay.
no, McDavid, I mean, he should be getting 8 to 10 calls a night, right? I mean, he is constantly interfered with, hooked, slowed down. And it's not just McDavid. It's Matthews. It's
McKinnon, Crosby.
I mean, and I know you can't call everything. But if that's the way the NHL wants it to be, why aren't they calling everything?
Well, I think you have to look a bit of it through a fan's eyes, and not every time he loses the puck, it's a penalty.
Agree.
Because I saw a montage last year of something like they were talking about the playoffs. There should have been 20 penalties on them that weren't called, and honestly, I saw maybe 3 that you really had an argument on. The other ones, it was man-to-man coverage, and hockey's a contact sport, and guys are gonna get knocked down. They're gonna get impeded. People are gonna get in their way. And if that's my ice too, I'm gonna get in that ice and make him take a longer route. That's not necessarily always a penalty. That's just good defense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now my
Troy,
last one.
quit being a damn homer.
No, okay, but here I do got another one to piggyback that one. Last week, Ovechkin on Hyman. Come on.
That was a penalty.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear.
I was in Bristol, Connecticut, actually. I was broadcasting from the studios that night because there were 3 games all running simultaneous, and I can't do that from my home. So they filmed the show The Point in the afternoon, and they asked me, would you come on and talk about that? And I said, sure, I'll come on and talk about it. And I have to maintain credibility. I can't say, well, no, that wasn't a penalty. Of course it was a penalty. But I also said, you've got one referee who's deep in the corner. He's looking through about 4 guys to try and make that call, and he knows his partner's 5 feet from it. So for him to guess on it, and if he's wrong, they're going to say, why didn't you defer to your partner? And his partner, like, to his credit, or I shouldn't say credit, he's certainly not looking at it the way we saw it on the video and going, that's not a penalty.
Yeah.
He's too good a referee for that. But it was a quick turnover. He was caught flat-footed at the close blue line. He had to turn and pivot with his back to the play, skating towards the net. And if you see him in the video, he's looking over his shoulder at the play. So a lot of things conspired there. Bad luck. I don't think you got to look at it the way we all got to look at it 4 or 5 times.
We don't see that angle, right? We just see whatever the broadcast, the TV showing us, right? So
correct. So
the fastest player in the world. Yeah.
No, exactly. So we're looking at that and going, should it have been a hook? Yeah, it should have been a hook, but calls get missed all night. And then you go on social media and people are saying, well, the referees, they don't want Canadian teams to win, or they don't want, Oilers to win. I mean, there's none of that. A referee misses a call, he gets critiqued. I mean, people go, referees should be suspended, referees should be fined. Well, you know what? Referees are consistently rated all year long. They're critiqued. Their calls are in Toronto. Every game has a guy sitting in Toronto watching that game, marking every call they make and marking every call in their opinion that they think he missed. It's available to that official on his laptop after the game. He just has to open a laptop, go to the game, and click on it. And their body of work is assessed at the end of the season. The supervisors, there's a group of 8 or 9 of them, plus the referee in chief. Only 20 guys get playoffs.
Yeah.
They've got 35 referees, 35 linesmen. Only 20 and 20 make the playoffs. So you got a good 40% of your staff who's not making playoffs. So you tell me, I mean, they want a referee to be fined. Well, not getting playoffs and not getting bonus money.
That is a
your
fine.
performance affects how much money you make.
And the bottom line is, guys, without referees, there's no game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So back off,
And-
all you guys out there.
No, but I mean, I've never worked with an official or talked with an official at the NHL level who hasn't gone on that ice going, I'm going to be perfect tonight, or try my darndest to be perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, it seldom happens, but guys aren't looking at calls and going, I just don't feel like making that, or I don't like that guy and I'm not going to make that call. They really couldn't care who wins. What they care about is doing the best job they can so they get playoff games and they don't make a fool of themselves.
Right.
This is
Talked
great.
about that
This is-
last week a little bit.
Yeah. And this is
Like I
unbelievable.
was saying, like
Sorry, go on.
so-
Sorry.
no, like sometimes you just like, I only ref for a couple years, but sometimes you just miss it. You either don't see it or kind of, no pun intended, but you get caught flat-footed, and then it's like, well, you don't want to call it late, so it's like, well, I'll just let it go. It's
Oh, absolutely.
hard.
And it's
because
about
there's
where
a
your
lot of things to watch.
It's about where your focus is too. I mean, you'll see a guy, a stick up in a guy's face, and it doesn't make contact, but all of a sudden he gets tripped with a guy's foot. And they go, he's looking right at it, but no, he's looking to make sure the guy doesn't get high sticked,
Mhm.
and he's not focused on the foot, and a guy will go down. So it's all about where your focus is. Are you focused to waist up or waist down, and something happens and you miss it?
Yeah. Speaking of foot, we talked about it in the pregame a little bit. What's your thought on the PK slew ban going on? Because you mentioned you guys don't prejudge players,
Right.
but the amount of times that's happened, like, do you think they talk about that at all?
I don't know. I'm not in the room with them. I think you watch hockey highlights, you see things that go on. It's tough to avoid media. You're going to watch it. You're going to see that. But once again, I mean, you don't prejudge a play and go, well, this, and I guess there was something happened just recently, which I actually didn't see, but I saw some headlines. But if you're looking at a player, he goes in the corner, any player goes in a corner one-on-one,
Mhm.
you're going to watch for a slew foot no matter who the player is.
Yeah.
And sometimes these things happen so fast in conjunction with a legal body check. You put a shoulder on a guy, you put your forearms, your elbow, and then the skate gets involved. And a lot of times, I'm not being an apologist here, but a lot of times that foot gets in behind for leverage to keep your own balance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
That's
well,
all I can
Dave,
say.
this is great right now, and I want to give you some kudos here now too, because we've just been grilling you a little bit here. This is perfect. We're going to grill you a little bit more after this, but
it's like you guys are cops.
you've ref some big events in your career. I want to touch on the 1988 Memorial Cup, and I'm going to blow this name, Chitakumi,
Chicoutimi.
Quebec,
Good to me.
Good to me.
70th annual Memmer. What was that experience like for you?
Well, you guys are from the West, and you weren't born yet, right?
Drew definitely wasn't.
I was
No,
born in 1995.
I'm 1980.
Okay.
Troy and I were.
So Medicine Hat was playing,
Oh,
and they were returning champions. They'd won the year before.
My buddy
And
played
I
for the
had-
team, Rod Williams.
wow.
They had a good team. They had Rob DeMaio, they had Dean Chanuth, Fitzpatrick in nets. They had a whole bunch of great players, and they had them where I had them in the round robin. And back then it was a lot chippier than you see junior hockey now. Adam Graves and Paul Maurice were playing for Windsor.
That's cool. Okay.
And so there was a semi breakaway, and the defenseman for Medicine Hat tattooed the guy in the side of the helmet. And we could call slashing back then without a game misconduct. So you didn't really have to worry about, well, is it worth 5? I'm going to throw the guy out of the game. You could just go 5 for slashing. So called 5 for slashing. I mean, the guy's ear was hanging off, blood. So he got 5 for slashing, and about 30 seconds into the power play, Fitzpatrick and Nets just decided to two-hand the guy in front of the net in the ankles. Down he went. So I called another major penalty. So they were down 5-on-3 with major penalties, and they got lit up, lost the game, and they were in danger of not making it to the finals. Well, they ended up winning the Memorial Cup. And needless to say, I did not work the finals. But I think every WHL hockey fan was not too. They had little voodoo dolls of Dave Jackson. I didn't make any friends in the Western Hockey League with that Memorial Cup, but it was a great experience. It was a lot of fun.
So how was your experience with the 2014 Sochi Olympics?
2014 Sochi Olympics was really different because normally guys go to the Olympics, and if they want to fly their wife in or their family for all or part of it, they can do sightseeing. But there were terrorist sort of threats that Olympic. In fact, the U.S. was in danger of pulling out of the Olympics right beforehand. So we had to all charter a plane. We left on Saturday. The first games were Wednesday. We left on Sunday. We chartered, and we were there for the full 18 days. So nobody really brought any families. So we were, as much as you missed your family having the experience, it was more like going to training camp. The 13 guys, and we were all just together in the hotel. Fortunate enough to be inside the perimeter. We didn't have to go through security every day. So we just hung out. It was just 13 referees all in the same hotel. It was separated from the athletes. They were all in the village. And it was just, it was a lot of fun. You're with your buddies. You go to watch their games. You go to watch other events. Some guys went up to the mountains to go skiing. And I would have liked to see more of Russia because I didn't experience Moscow. Sochi, it would be like saying if a Russian citizen said, I'm going to the US, and he landed in Disneyland, hung out at Disneyland, and then flew home, went to the beach maybe and gone, well, I saw America. Well, you didn't really see America. You saw Disneyland and the ocean. That's kind of how Sochi was. Palm trees and everything was nice and clean. And it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Dave, so I'm I guess if you want to say American, I've lived in America since 2004, but so I watch a lot of ESPN and TNT hockey, and you guys have both, starting this year, done a great job. How did that happen? Like, how did you end up with ESPN?
I was driving in my car and the phone rang, and it was ESPN, and they introduced themselves and asked me if I would consider and be interested in doing this job. They got my name through the NHL, I guess. And that's, I'd never even knew it was a job they were planning on having, and they called me and offered it to me. And I went, yeah, of course, sign me up. I mean, I sit on my couch and I yell at the announcers for getting things wrong. And I go, that's not the rule. I can explain that rule. And then my phone rang, and one day they're offering me that job, which I'm telling you what, it's a lot harder doing it than I thought it would be.
So do you,
That's cool.
do you work with our second cousin, Mr. Melrose?
I work with Barry Miller. Are you guys related to Barry?
That's our second cousin. Yeah.
Well, then you can ask him because he was coach of that Medicine Hat team.
That's
Yes,
right.
correct, he
Yeah.
was. We had him on
Oh,
the
he was
podcast.
He must have been pissed at you putting down.
Oh, I
5-on-3.
think he held that grudge for a couple of years because he went to Adirondack coaching the
Right.
American League, and then he went on to coach the Kings. And I think he held that grudge for a few years. Hopefully he's over it now. I haven't spoken to him lately, but
We'll thank
yeah,
both of
no,
you
but-
in the Twitter in a tweet.
yeah, there you go.
Do you get nervous when you're on TV and they're like, hey, what do you think about this call?
Because Tori does on the
buddies-
podcast. So we want to ask you that question.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, it is. I'm still a work in progress because I'm at the mercy of seeing the replay because it all happens so fast, and I'm doing most of my games from home. So they'll come to me, and the producers are great. They'll ask me, "Have you had a chance to see the replay?" But it's new for them too. I mean, it's the first year they're doing hockey in 17, 18 years. Unlike football, they usually have just the one game, and the referee analyst is there live.
Yeah.
So it's new territory for everybody, and we're still working through it. And so far, so good. But at the beginning, they want me to be concise, and I was too concise. And I always ended one of my hits with the feeling that I left more questions on the table than I answered, and I spoke too fast, and I didn't really do a good job. To now, I'm a little more comfortable. I'll speak, and if my producer wants me to wrap it up, he'll say, okay, wrap it up. But I'll try and give a little lengthier version, but I don't small talk. I try and get right to it. And that's, they've worked with me and made me better at what I'm doing. And can I get better? Sure. But I'm a lot better than I was the first month.
I got you. I got a friend of mine is he's the head official for the NCAA football, Steve Shaw. I don't know how much you follow football, but
no, I've heard that name.
Basically the exact same thing. But anyways,
how does he like it?
Oh, he loves it.
Good.
Dave, I think we have two more here, and then we'll go to our questions from the gallery. This has been great.
That really reminded me of Step Brothers. Sorry. Hey,
what?
Tori's asking. Now I'm going to ask you the question.
Oh yeah, we're going to do the interview now.
Is that ketchup?
Like it?
How much you get paid a year before taxes? Okay, Dave. When we had Tim Peel on, we asked some questions about some funny stories that he recalled from his reffing days, and a lot of them went back to the junior days. Funny stuff, memories, maybe coaches flipping out, parents. You got any of those stories for us?
Wow, you put me on a spot here. One of the funniest stories was from the American Hockey League. My first year doing the American Hockey League, and Claude Julien, the ex-coach of the Canadiens and Boston Bruins, he was playing for Halifax, and he was the captain, and they'd never seen me before. It was my first year in the league, and we had our names in the back of our sweaters, so Jackson, and they had a lot of French kids on their team, and I'd refereed a lot of these French kids because they were playing in the queue. And I refereed in the queue, and I've got a terrible French accent, but I'm fairly fluent in French. So there was this one kid I gave a penalty to, and on the way to the box, he was yapping at me and beaking at me. So I gave him an extra 2-minute minor. And then he got in the box and threw his stick and yelled some more at me. I ended up throwing him out of the game. And Fredericton, Halifax was losing. They were losing by a lot of goals this night. They're just getting pumped by Moncton. And Claude Julien comes off the bench, and he comes across, and he's super respectful, and he goes, "Hey, Davey," he goes, "I know we've never talked. We've never spoken. And, I think you're having a rough night tonight, but I've left you alone." He goes, "But I've got to take exception to this penalty you just called, because kid's my roommate, and he doesn't speak a word of English." He goes, "Your room's with me because we're French, and you have no idea what he said. You can't throw a guy out of the game when you don't even know what he said. You just assumed what he said." And I looked at Claude, and in like perfect French, I answered him back in French that I'm from Quebec, lived in Montreal, I worked the queue, and I know exactly what he said. So Claude paused for a second, he tapped me in the shin pad. He said, "Well, that's a hell of a call then, Dave." I skated away.
That's good.
That's pretty good. I like that.
That's all time.
Dave, we talked about it early in the show a little bit briefly, but we're going to get right into it here before we get grilled by our listeners. How's your golf game? What's your handicap? I mean, where are you at? How much you playing?
Well, some would say my handicap is I'm left-handed, but
Lefty.
yeah, lefty. During COVID, before I was, I was no longer. I was supervised when I retired from the ice. I was supervising for the NHL in the American Hockey League, and then COVID happened and everything shut down for a while. So myself and Brad Watson, I think we played about 110 games of golf that first summer, and I was down to an 8. That's best I could get. 8 point something index.
That's smoking.
Well, it's index, so I make my handicap like a 9 something or whatever. But then, now that I'm working again and doing stuff, I'm probably I'm a sandbagger 12, 13, something like that.
You'd be a hell of a match play partner, though. You and
I'm a great scramble and a match play partner. Yeah.
Crank that puppy up to 15 and we'll talk.
That's what I'm talking about, Tori.
All right, Dave, let's go to our segment called Questions from the Gallery, sponsored by Rubber Co. Rubber Co is 100% made out of recycled tires. They have tons to offer: rubber flooring, rubber mats, rubber parking blocks, rubber speed bumps, rubber ramps. We also now have hockey devices, including our new deflector. Check them out today at www.rubberco.com Also call today at 306-541-9840. Think with your head and choose the right rubber. All right.
Nicely done, Drew.
And those
That's
aren't
awesome.
condoms. They're rubber flooring.
Pretty smooth. Pretty smooth.
Do I get a door prize? As
We
I
should
leave?
set you up with some rubber mats down there. We can
Okay,
figure it
right on.
out.
Just need the Addy. That's all.
You need the Addy, and then you have to do a promotional post for us and say, this is Rubber Crow. And think with your head and choose the right rubber. And then you're good.
So, Dave, these are
I'll
just some
pass.
general questions we get from some of our listeners. Some are from us. Some we ask to every guest. I'm going to start it off with
How much money you make before taxes?
No, I'm going to start it off with my favorite question that I ask each and every guest. Your ultimate golf foursome. Anybody you could golf with, dead or alive, famous, whatever. Who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. You couldn't have told me this but in advance and let me
No, that's
Think
makes
about it.
fun.
This is
Makes
way
it fun.
better. So now you got to throw your buddies under the bus and you got to make sure it's the right three guys or girls.
Oh, wow.
If you want to
Jeez.
think about it, we can come back to that one after.
Yeah, let's come back to that one.
Okay.
You're up.
I just
All right.
asked one. You want me to ask another one?
Yep.
Okay. Not that we're biased because of our last name, but how many times you see Joey fight? And is there anybody you think that,
And was he respectful?
well, that too, but is he in your top 5 fighters?
Are you guys related to Joey?
That's our cousin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys,
Yeah.
you guys are cousins of everybody. I mean, what's going on up
Clark's
there?
and Melrose. They're all from
Welcome
the Green
to
Belt.
Kelvington, Saskatchewan.
So you guys related to Brad Watson too?
No. Maybe.
No?
We'll have to check the family tree. We'll check that one out.
How about Kelly Hollingshead?
No.
Nope.
No?
No.
All right.
Through marriage of something, and somebody's brother, sister, uncle, aunt. I'm not
We'll
sure.
leave that those two.
Joey Kosher's tough as nails, man. He was ultimate warrior, ultimate respectful guy too. I ran into him several times. I mean, teams didn't charter back then. So if you were on the road, you ended up in the same restaurant, having the same couple of Diet Cokes after the game. And,
One
we
of our next
talked.
questions, by the way.
He'd show us his hands and his knuckles. And I can remember them being, there was one year, I think they showed his hands on Sports Illustrated or Hockey News or something. I mean, they were just mangled. And he would not back down from anyone. What a teammate. You could just tell the respect his teammates had for him.
You're up, Tori.
I love it. Okay. You might not want to answer this just because of your employment now, but what asshole coaches or players did you run into?
Well, whatever team was losing tended to have more jerks on them than the team that was winning. But you know what? I'm going to defer. I'm not going to answer that.
Okay. I'm going to go to my next.
I'll give you the ultimate gentleman that I ran across in my career, but yeah, I'm not going either way.
Sounds good.
Ultimate gentleman then. Let's do that one.
Well,
Who's that?
You start with Joe Sakic, Nick Lidstrom, Trevor Linden,
Just great. Hey.
Mark Messier, Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky. Those guys, I mean, they would test you. They would test you, but for the most part, Adam Graves, there's just too many guys. Almost like I was talking earlier in a different podcast, referees get calls 99% of the time right. They make thousands of decisions every game
Yeah.
that you never even realize you're making a decision. A guy falls down, a guy, gets hit. You're making a decision. And it's only the 1% of the calls that ever get noticed because they're bad. It's the same with the players. I mean, 99% of the players are just really good guys. And it's the guys that misbehave that get all the notice, and they go, oh, what's this guy like? But how about the other 99% that are just awesome guys?
Gotcha. Since you deferred, I'm going to ask another one. Sorry, Drew. What do you think about the instant replay? Do you think it's helped or hurt the game?
Question.
A big picture, I think it's helped the game. It's helped the game a lot. I can remember it started just as, did the puck cross the goal line or not? Or was it kicked in?
Skate blade in the blue.
Right.
Oh, I hated that. God, that was bad.
Just a terrible feeling to be the only guy in the world that didn't see the puck go in the net. You get teams, especially a playoff game, you get teams battling. I mean, one goal might be the difference.
Yep. And
everybody in the building sees it. The Jumbotron sees it. Everybody on TV sees it. And you're saying no goal and you're living with that call. It's just not fair. It's not fair to the game. So when they brought that in, I think that was the greatest thing they could have done. And I think when they brought it in for all the other things, they brought it in to fix egregious missed calls or egregious bad calls. That was the intent of it. And it was a bit of a slippery slope. You were challenging small things and all that. And that was unintended, but I think they've fixed it to a pretty good degree with now having a minor penalty if you're wrong. I think you're seeing far less challenges to where the coach is going, well, it's a 50-50, let's try it.
Yeah.
When he has to serve a penalty, I think it makes them think. And I think it's in a good place. And I really like it. I mean, as a referee, if you're going to get the call wrong, you're going to get noticed by your bosses that you got it wrong regardless. Why penalize the team for getting the call wrong? Let's just be fair to the fans. Let's be fair to the game and get the call right.
It's funny because
The only thing I don't like right now is the how they can go back, 20 seconds back and it was offside by an inch.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's
all the
just
sports kind of changed like that too. Like, I remember, was it Jeff Joyce, the umpire, when Armando Galarraga was throwing the perfect game?
Yes.
And he called that last guy safe, and he was out by clearly a couple feet. And I mean, how he felt. Like he
probably felt worse than the pitcher.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And I mean, that's when baseball started to really, they started using their instant replay a lot more too, right? I mean, it's better for the game, I think, as well. Sometimes I don't like it, because it's like, damn it, his toenail was over the blue line and it just cost us a win. You know what I mean? But that's what it's there for, right? So,
yep.
What's your question there, Drew?
Pre-game routine and pre-game meal when you were reffing. I never asked this a ref before. I'm curious to know this question. Answer.
Well, pre-game meal when I started out was always pasta. It was, you got to get your carbs, and I became almost superstitious that if I didn't have pasta before the game, that I have a bad game. But I never accounted for all the games I had that were bad games, and I had pasta that day until I finally realized this is stupid. I can't live my life with superstition. So probably my last decade refereeing, I ate whatever the guys wanted to eat. Just there was nothing in particular I wouldn't eat. I mean, you try and eat healthy. You're trying to.
We lost him. Dave, still there? We lost him.
Tori's paused too.
Oh no. What is happening?
And I'm paused. No, I'm not.
All right, man. Episode 113 with Dave Jackson. Not Alan, Dave. Boys, I had a blast with that one. He answered every question that we had, I think, except for one Tori asked. Good dude, though.
That was a banger.
Like, we lost connection at one point. We're now still using a hotspot to record this thing. But hey, thoughts on the pod, man?
unexpected, awesome guest.
Very, very insightful, especially as an NHL ref and now analyst with ESPN. Give a lot of good answers to the questions we had. You know, I even asked him, I said, like, are the questions we asking you good? And he said, yeah. This is like, what did he actually say? This is one of the top-notch podcasts I've joined. Those exact words, which kind of feels good, right, fellas? I mean,
It was
That was a
pretty-
nice pat on the back.
It's a nice tip of your cap.
And little behind the scenes, we talked to him after a bit, and he answered a couple more questions, but which we can't reveal because we don't want to ruin
beauty.
him.
He's a beauty.
But
We're doing it somehow.
Awesome.
Get
He
him down
was
here.
so cool, man.
Get
he
him
was
down
cool.
to Saskatchewan or go to Colorado and golf with him. That guy is cool. We'll get him on before playoffs too, or even right after the first round, like Tori said. Man, he's cool. Good dude. 1,600 some games in the NHL.
a little bit longer one, but it's actually worth the listen.
Yeah.
They're all worth a listen, but it was a longer podcast because he had some good stories. So
Troy has dinner plans. I'm exhausted. Tori, what else we got here before we send off for the podcast this week, as it is a long pod?
I think that's it. I hope everyone enjoyed it. That's all I got.
All right, Troy, we'll talk to you next week, hopefully.
yeah, you bet. Yep.
Wednesday night. You there Wednesday night?
Oh,
It's a big one.
hold on a sec here.
It's a big guess, man.
Gotta think. So I work Monday, Tuesday days, Wednesday night, Thursday night. I'm out Wednesday. Sorry, pal. I work night shifts Wednesday. I did make
Is it
two
the
in a
big
row.
one that we canceled on last week?
I don't know. We'll talk about it after.
All right.
Tori, we'll talk to you next week. Everyone else,
Have a day.
see ya.